Good morning out there, traders. It's January 3rd, 2024, and welcome to the Apteros Daily Market Insight. Let's start with our recap from our last DMI, and then we'll update our levels for today. So taking a look at our overall DMI from yesterday, we had the ideas spot on, and we understood the context, what was going on. The market just didn't necessarily play perfectly with our levels. So what was our general plan from yesterday? It was being bearish below these two lines in the sand, or these two levels here. This is generally what we were looking at as our main scenario. And then, of course, we were talking about this lower neutral area as being extremely important to the downside if we were going to see any continuation. We were going to have to clear out that particular neutral area. And that was the general game plan of what we were looking at. If we didn't clear out this neutral reference, we were looking for a pullback, and then, of course, getting on board with the shorts down into that neutral reference, and then looking for that to be the overall target. And if it did just happen for whatever reason to break out, we were going to look for continuation ideas from there. So the market, you can see, essentially came out into the open here and just kind of went sideways for a little while around our neutral area, and then pulled back into our line in the sand zone. And we just didn't get a true test of our line in the sand before the market decided it was time to sell back off again. And it sold off right into our target area and then held for the remainder of the session. So there really wasn't much in terms of, positioning at these lines in the sand for us to do. So it's one of those days where you kind of nail everything in terms of context, but you just don't get the trading opportunity from the ideal trade location. Now, there were opportunities to get short using some intraday tools and things like that, but ultimately it was one of those situations where you just had to either, kind of front run the reference a little bit, or you did nothing for the session. And that's just how it goes. Like, these things can happen. So it's nothing to be frustrated about. It's just one of those days where, you know, it just doesn't work out in your favor. The randomness doesn't play out in your favor. So it's nothing to be upset about. As a matter of fact, you can see with these DMIs, we do this all the time. So just continue to work and continue to get better and continue to learn to read that context, and the opportunities will come your way. Okay, so now we are looking at today's levels. I know they look very similar to yesterday's because nothing really has shifted for us from yesterday. A lot of the same references are about in the same positions as they were. So let's just go over that overall landscape once again. These two neutral references are really important to us for any type of continuation out of this bigger area. Now, this bigger area is a place where we've seen value over a complex period of time build. In other words, in this particular zone. So that's why it's so important for us to actually clear out these particular references to get any type of real movement outside of that area. So, excuse me. What we're essentially looking at here are that 47.67 zone to 48.28 zone as kind of like an overall bigger context of value. Now, within that value, we have some areas on our time frames that have shifted to the bearish side of things. So that's what we're paying attention to here with our two lines in the sand. Our first line in the sand now kind of having a little bit more confluence within it. We're looking at that as the main thesis for today, with scenario one holding below that zone. Now, where we're at this point is we're into that target area. So if we get that pullback all the way back into there, we'll be looking for that inflection with scenario one, or we'll be looking for the break below this neutral reference to continue down with scenario one, using our neutral reference for a continuation opportunity. And that's really how we're kind of positioned right now at the hard right edge. So those are the things we're monitoring for pending the acceptance picture, and that's what we're going to be paying attention to coming into the open here. Now, let's talk about alternate scenarios. If we get up above this line in the sand, we're looking at scenario two here. This would be definitely available for a scalp. We'd be seeing some shifting acceptance pictures on some lower time frames, so easily could scalp into this upper bearish area here, and then this bearish area here is kind of the last line in the sand for the bearish side of this overall idea or context that we've seen shifting to the downside here. And if we don't hold this line in the sand to the bearish side of things, then we'd be looking for this upper neutral target here as we continue to head upward, right? So that's with scenario two. We're kind of following the breakdowns of these lines in the sand to the upside. Now, taking a look at scenario three, we have this line in the sand here, and we're monitoring this line in the sand for the inflection, right? So in other words, we'd have to be pulling up all the way into here, get a continuation up above, looking at this zone here, and we'll be monitoring for the bears at that particular area there. But this is, like I said, it's a smaller area. It's a smaller line in the sand. The precision is a little bit more exact around it. So we'll be paying attention to that with a little bit more of a closer look, looking for those inflections, looking for supporting market generated information at that area. Otherwise, like I said, scenario 2 could play out all the way up into the upper neutral area here. And that's pretty much the landscape of what we have going on today in our ESDMI. We're monitoring scenario 1 currently, which is downside from this particular line in the sand, and we'll be watching this neutral area here for any possible continuation if we accept below it and we get a continuation down this 47.26 type of zone. All right? So trade well out there and mind your risk, and let's have a great trading day.